5. This opening statement will apply for business conducted at this meeting. Roll call, please.
Edwin Hill. T.J. Roby. Dave Mansfield.
Sharon McCullough.
Bill Clemens.
Ron Woodward. Frank Stellinger.
We have all of our members present, clear that's a quorum, and all of our staff is here, so we will commence. First item on our agenda is scheduled for 7 p.m. is a new hearing with determination of applicability. May we have the reading of the notice, Mr. Clerk?
The Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, at 7 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a request for determination of applicability for Williams Yard, represented by Williams Engineering Associates Incorporated, 180 County Road, Plymouth, Mass. 02367. Parcel and project. Proposal to perform excavation of test pits, perk test, and to upgrade the septic system to Title V standards for existing residential homes within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 83 West Washington Street, map 92, lot 23A. The applicant is filing in the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Hanson Town of Hanson Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 313, Section 5, and Rules and Regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission, Philip Clemens, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do we have either the applicant or representative? Okay. Do we have information perhaps available through our agents regarding this project?
You have the plan, right?
Yeah, they have
Okay.
plans on the letter.
There's all these plans, so this is the one we're looking at. So we will refer to
So, this is a straightforward repair. The septic system, absorption system will be put in the front near the road. The reason that it's an RDA is that the tank is going to be put to the side of the house within the 50-foot buffer zone. Once the tank is in and piped up and backfilled, there shouldn't be any, it shouldn't look any different than it does now, which is lawn. So I'm recommending a -3 determination, and you'll need to grant a variance for the disturbance in the 50-foot.
Okay, the plan is in our hand before us. This house clearly appears to have been built before the wetlands regulations, buffer zone, and things like that got tightened up. And so here we are.
It appears we may have abutters.
Yeah.
Yes?
The hearing is open, and we're ready to hear whatever any questions might be from the public or any abutters. We have pictures, we have drawings here if you want to take a look at them.
No, I had no questions. I see the house was for sale. I didn't know what was, going on, so.
Okay.
I said, I'll find out.
Okay. Mr. Hill.
I just have a question as far as digging test pits. We can do test pits and doing the perk test. It doesn't matter what time of year those are done?
No, it doesn't. No.
Will you get the same results throughout the year?
There are processes in place to adjust for what they find when they dig the hole. Yes. Just so that you understand, the house is for sale and the owner is absentee. It turns out he's in Florida. He lives in Florida, and he's selling this house, which belonged, I believe, to his parents. So the RDA was put in to conservation on his behalf by the realtor,
Okay.
who is not here, obviously.
And so what they did was
And the engineer isn't here either.
they engaged Webby Engineering, and this is the product of that
Yep.
communication.
Yeah.
So there's an existing cesspool which will be pump dry, filled with clean sand, and thus abandoned. And the technology of the day, which is Title V, is going to be put in place through this new proposed septic tank and the absorption system out front. And as you say, Frank, it seems pretty straightforward. Any further thoughts or questions? I'm kind of familiar with the house, but it's good to see the details about the wetlands. And these were delineated just this past August, so that's fresh.
Frank, was this house just before us or something else, or was it like a neighbor? Wasn't there an 80-something West Washington Street that was just here or something?
This is a different address on West Washington Street. Okay.
That's across the street. Yeah, the house.
Yeah, it's a long street, a lot of projects.
Yeah.
There's been some closer to the east end, some close to the middle, some close to the far end. This is kind of close to the east end. I think the family name is Bryard.
It is, yes.
And there was a Bill Bryard who, I remember about 50 years ago, and his sister was my sister.
Yes.
That's right. So, that's not for the record.
Always have.
So, it looks simple. There's no reason to think it isn't simple. The details are here. Clearly, our agent you have looked at the site, Frank?
I have.
And chances are during the...
And I said it's a straightforward repair.
Yeah, and you'll probably take another look before or during the work.
Once the perk test is done, then Webby will come back with the final, and I'll review that, and it'll be done.
So, at this point, regarding the application, the request for determination of applicability, the chair would be happy to hear a motion to, first of all, grant a variance to permit work within the 50-foot buffer zone.
So moved.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. And the chair would further be happy to hear a motion to issue a -3 determination with regard to this property.
And close the hearing.
And close the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Completeness.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Hear any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 5-0-0. The -3 determination will be issued. The hearing is closed, and there is probably a piece of paper. Yes, here it is, on its way down to document such. I wonder if this abuts or is more or less near the northeast corner of the Brian Gaffey Conservation Area.
No,
It's not quite, it's a little further away.
it's around the corner.
Okay.
It's in the middle of West Washington Street.
Plenty of wetlands to go around.
West Washington Street should be West Washington Street.
You know, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Lots of work there.
We should submit a
Have
request.
you been in 59 a long time?
I'm 50 years old. I grew up on Crescent Street in Hanson.
Okay.
My parents were friends with the people that owned the house back in the 70s.
Mhm.
Late 87. My aunt bought the house from my family friends,
Mhm.
and about 7 years ago, I bought the house from them. So I remember when we played Frisbee on that street without even seeing a car for hours. You know, it's like a highway.
It's a big cut through from the East Bridgewater area over towards Hanover,
Yeah.
if you don't want to go further north.
Yeah.
Okay. This is coming back.
And I actually knew Mr. Bryant when I was a little kid. We used to go skating behind his house in the swamp water.
There you go, there's wetlands. He was in the military,
Yeah.
and I think he used to be stationed over the Air Force, or whatever it was, radio station on Fort Cliff in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I saw him when I first bought the house. He came over and said, "I just want to let you know, I have early onset dementia." Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
What do you want to let me know?
clearly, none of this is for the record, although the meeting is recorded, but that will not disturb, I think, the business we've done, so thank you all for that. We will move along, it is getting close to 7:15.
Right.
Stay as long as you like, we don't have refreshments.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
We have a couple of minutes, and maybe just enough time to say the October 5th minutes are in our hands, a few pages thereof, if we wish to glance through them. The only person not present was Dr. Skellington. That's quite all right. I would just indicate that on the property management thing, the Bay Circuit Trail name thing, we actually chose the name Bonnie Hill Trail. I don't see the word Bonnie Hill Trail in the minutes. Was it meant to be, or am I getting ahead?
Oh, yes, it was, Bonnie
Yeah.
Hill Trail.
So on the property management update, that,
Bay Circuit.
next to the last page, that section, instead of Bay Circuit Trail, insert Bonnie Hill Trail instead.
Yep.
It actually has many identities, but that's the one that the name would be. I don't think I have any other comments. And the commission feels ready. The chair would be happy to hear a motion regarding the minutes of October 5th.
I move that we go to accept the minutes of October 5th with the small change to the trails.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes of October 5th with that minor change just discussed. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, minutes are approved. Now, virtually 7:15, so our agenda calls for us to have another hearing. This is another request for determination of applicability, another new hearing. So we have another new hearing notice, Mr. Clerk.
The Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a request for determination of applicability for Kim McLaughlin, represented by Arthur F. Borden and Associates Incorporated, 302 Broadway, Unit 4, Raynham, Mass. 02767. Parcel and project. A proposal to perform deep hole soil observation pits for the determination of the estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation along the soil observation and perk test for a new on-site septic system to replace the existing failed system for existing residential home within 100 feet bordering vegetated wetlands at 410 Woodbine Avenue, map 3, lot 30. The applicant is filing on the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetlands Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, and rules and regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission for comments, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. The hearing is now open. The floor belongs to the applicant or representative, however you wish to proceed.
Good evening, my name is Walter Sullivan, I'm counsel for the McLaughlins, who are the property owners, who are here with us as well, and our project engineer. So I'm going to do a brief full review of the application.
Gordon from Arthur Gordon and Associates. Very similar to your last request for determination, looking to have permission to dig soil observation test pits, perk holes within the 100-foot buffer. There's no work, no excavation proposed within the 50-foot buffer to the wetlands. We will be coming back to you most likely with a notice of intent when we can do a final design for a septic system. At this point, we don't know what it's gonna be. We need to get the soil conditions and the water table to figure out what we're gonna do, so we're taking one step at a time.
Okay, and we have this plot plan for 410 Woodbine Ave prepared for Steve Laughlin. This is dated August 5th, 2022 by Gordon and Associates. Turning to our agent, wondering if you have any comments at this early stage, Dr. Stellinger?
No, it's straightforward. The determination is just for digging the test pits and doing the perk tests. The locations of the test pits are designated to be outside the 50-foot buffer, so I would recommend a -3.
Looking at the drawing, just to get more familiar, Woodbine Avenue is there, the existing dwelling is shown. Proposed test pit locations are shown, there's some graphics there. 50-foot buffer is shown, it's not colored, but that's okay, it's easily marked. Questions or comments from anyone on the commission? Any further comments or anything at all from either the applicant or any butters or anything? Well, we have the information. We have a recommendation from our agent. Because the work would not be within the 50-foot buffer, we don't need to propose a variance for that work. So, hearing no further comments or controversy, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination with regard to this project.
So moved. Second.
And close the hearing.
And close the hearing. If I had that in writing, I'd get it every time, but that's fine. So, is that a part of the motion to close the hearing as well?
It is.
Discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 500. The -3 determination is granted, and the hearing is closed, and we will sign some papers.
Mr. Gordon, when you come back with the design, would you make sure that the plan identifies where White Oak Brook is in relation to the property?
Yeah. The more orientation to the local resources, the more we can be sure we're doing things right. Yeah, he's creamsicle. It's instant creamsicle. Just any sense of timing on the future plans? I mean, no, this work and then the follow-up NOI and things like that?
For us, it'll be as soon as the Board of Health agent is available, we coordinate with the backhoe.
Okay.
And then probably within a couple weeks after that, we'll have a design ready to file with you, so we'll move right along.
Yeah, we don't always have 2 meetings during the month of December. We're just trying to get a sense of when the agendas will be ready or when they'll be available to you. Thank you. That will, may everything proceed. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our agenda says no appointments, but there are a few things to discuss, and so we will proceed with that. The first thing shown on here is a potential modification to a determination of applicability plan, and maybe our agent will be happy to share thoughts about that. That's from the McDonald's on Liberty Street.
You have a copy of the plan in front of you, but it doesn't identify what the revision is. The engineer and the company, McDonald's company, are before us out of they want to do the right thing, so
Abundance of caution.
abundance of caution. The only things that they're doing, changing this plan, is revising at the front of McDonald's, if you're familiar with it. They're going to remove the bike rack and revise the walk a little bit, making it handicap accessible. They're going to remove that little patio out front with the fence around it, and they're going to make it into a landscaped area. And they have a little bit of a fence around the door where you used to be able to come into that fenced-in patio. They're going to block that with a little fence. It's within the 100-foot buffer to that isolated wetland in the corner by the street, but it has no impact on the determination that you made earlier. And so I told them I would recommend that you just vote to accept the revised plan.
So it seems like a pretty minor modification,
Yes.
and I think as they indicate in their communication to the office, they believe the change will result in a further reduction of the impervious area. So it won't be increasing the impervious area, it'll be reducing it slightly. That's what they say in their email from October 11th. Well, it was a small project, and it looks like it's still small. And in the agent's opinion, the wording of our motion would be to approve the applicant's modification to the plan as previously addressed. Words to that effect. Any discussion or questions before we entertain a motion? Would someone care to offer the motion that we just described? Second. Last chance of discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. This minor change is approved. The next item listed in my thinking is the Conservation Commission review of guide to locating a business in Hanson. I believe at our last meeting, it was noted that the draft guide seemed to not have any mention of the Conservation Commission, which we felt was, shall we say, in need of correction. And we also authorized the conservation agent to put together information that would correct that, an offer that would offer to correct that situation. I'm know that the guide is kind of in our hands here among the many other things we have. Okay, what color is it?
This is golden, right?
Oh, okay. This is a courtesy of our town planner. It's a 27-page document counting the cover. And this would seem to be before the conservation piece was added. And what we are proposing to add let's see. Sorry for not actually knowing in advance, but is there something in our hands that represents what we propose to add?
No, no, there isn't.
Key contact.
Your agent fell down on the job and didn't respond, so I still have to do that.
Okay. Well, this certainly gives us a sense of the purpose and the level of detail that others in town hall would like to put in front of potential business moving into town as
It's interesting.
Mr. Laporte.
Don't mention the industrial park, anyway. As far as I know.
Is there a geography guide here? I mean, is there a section that talks about?
I didn't see anything about industrial park.
Well, they,
Oh.
they specify 3 commercial.
Yeah, on page 7, you're right, there is a map showing the business districts.
Right.
I wonder if that map, well, the circles are just kind of a big circle there. I know from looking at it just yesterday, the business zone in Hanson is little orange glob, not globs, but polygons that sit around some of the intersections. I don't know what the sense is of the dark, medium dark, light dark, and light gray areas. I don't know what those are supposed to represent. It says heat map showing the location of primary jobs in Hanson. I don't even know what a heat map is.
The darker colors are more jobs. They don't spell it out here, but that's what it's supposed to be.
Okay. I guess there's jargon that us non-business owners not quite tuned into.
The interesting thing about that is that there's no heat in the middle of the commercial area down on Main Street.
Yeah, the South Hanson area seems underheated.
If it was in color, it would look like an infrared image or a thermal scan. You can see like green, orange, red.
You know what's crazy about this? This shows a lot of jobs right on top of the well site, and very few jobs around the South Hanson area where the business district used to be and kind of still is, dilapidated though it may be. Well, I guess this isn't really as detailed as you might think, but Mrs. Laporte has pointed out that on page 8, key contacts, it lists a few people, and then it stops with et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm thinking one of our suggestions would be, however long the list gets, put conservation agents on that list. It's maybe a very drafty draft, but
We are mentioned under the section on how to get a building permit.
page number,
19.
The one ahead of us, pretty good there.
It's not much to mention, but it's a mention.
Right.
yeah. Just skimming this, you must file a letter of determination with the Conservation Commission and receive their approval. That's pretty vague. And I don't even know, I would presume our agent would be interested in improving that wording. And actually, under building permit, our permission to do X, Y, or Z should at least be simultaneous with that, if not previous.
Well, it lists steps you need to get a building permit, so before they'll issue you a building permit, you must get a permit from Board of Health for sewer, septic, you must get a water permit, you must get permission from conservation.
Yeah, I think this whole section needs to be improved because it says a sewage construction permit. I don't know any such thing as a sewage construction permit. There are septic system construction, applications and approvals, but there is no sewage in Hanson.
We paid somebody to write this?
It might be cut and pasted.
This is the first I've seen it.
We contracted consulting call to the economic development committee.
Ooh, well, clearly someone who doesn't live here wrote it.
Well, I think there's a lot of cut and paste for it.
Well, rather than snipe at it, I think it's a good idea that they are writing it, they're drafting it.
I think it's
also
a potentially valuable document.
Yeah, it's a good idea for us to be looking at it, which is clearly intended at this point. So it's time to give them a hand in improving the document. And, Frank, do you have any thoughts other than us just giving you a little more time? Do you want us to all look at this? I would think we should all look at this and
I think it would be
Be
better,
available.
I think it would be better if I drafted something up and then came before you
okay.
with it.
We might never have had a document like this, but I would assume other towns have something. It seems like we just keep starting from scratch with things like this.
Well, whether they have it or not, I think it's a good idea. And what Frank is suggesting, I think it makes sense, is we'll give him the necessary time and space to draft what he thinks our content should be, and he'll run it by us, and we'll take it up again. I greatly appreciate that offer.
With that being said, given that it's 4 weeks since Tony sent it, does he at least know that we are working on it, and he should anticipate feedback from us before he moves forward?
He will tomorrow.
Okay. Well, let the drafting begin or recommence. Huh. I see thanks to the consultant, the all-important information that business involves paperwork such as a piggery license. Anyway, we'll move right along. So, there are a couple things I think are in the packet, just moving on to something that's not listed, but it's a discussion item. Our conservation office perceived, I think correctly, the need for, after all the work that has been done successfully to acquire the Sleeper Conservation Area and all the work that was done successfully to do what is loosely termed a land swap with the water department, such that they have virtually now share 8.5 acres of our Webster Buildings Conservation Area, and in compensation we now have 25 acres of the northern part of the county hospital property. For each of those things, that's a total of 3 land use change things. This commission, we think, should arrange for there to be a deed that very, very clearly says the status of those 3 things. 2 of them are now land that is freshly and newly under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission, and therefore protected by Article 97 of the state constitution. Despite all the paperwork that's been produced, and again, successfully produced, we think more is needed. And so, with the help of the office, your chair put together submitted a couple of letters to the selectman, care of the town administrator, asking the town council to be directed to produce those deeds. We received an email back from town administrator saying that we can contact town council directly. I thought that there was a little bit of more gatekeeping on the utilization of town council time, but to me that's kind of good news. I think that what we will do now, barring a better idea from our staff and everyone else, is your chair with the staff will contact town council and basically put together the same request that we just put to the selectmen for these properties. What we don't want to have happen, and the chairperson is determined to not ever have it happen again, is do lots of good things to put land under conservation, but not record it with the registry of deeds. Hanson somewhat infamously let that happen about 20 or 30 years ago. And then the town went and auctioned the land off, and there was nothing to do about it. It wasn't, despite the will of the town meeting, it didn't stay conservation land. This must not ever happen again. So we're trying to make sure that on behalf of the sleeper property and the county hospital property, and also on behalf of the water department, and they'll work on the new well, get it right. Any questions about any of that?
So procedurally, if we contact town council, will we be billed for town council time?
We have to, before we contact town council, get approval to do that. There's a form for that. We request legal services through this form, and we get back a thing approving or not our request from the TA. After we got that email from Ms. Green, I sat down to make out those forms, which I plan to give to Mr. Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
And behind them, I put some documentation that would be useful to whoever is going to do the work with the town council. So, for example, the first one requests that we prepare a deed for a 13.1 acre parcel known as the Sleeper Conservation Area to be conveyed by the Select Board to the Conservation Commission. And behind that, I put a copy of the plan and also a copy of the taking that by which the Sleeper property came into the town. The second one was more interesting because it was to prepare a deed for an 8.5 acre parcel, part of the Webster Buildings Conservation Area, to be conveyed by the Select Board to the Water Department. And when I looked into that, what I discovered was there never was a deed making Webster Buildings in Conservation Commission ownership. So it's still under the Select Board, and the Select Board has to sign that deed to the Water Department. We might also want to ask them to sign a deed to deed the rest of it to the Conservation Commission, but I didn't make out one for that.
Before we leave that topic, I would say one comment is, from me anyways, that sounds an awful lot like the same mistake that was made with a smaller parcel in the northwest part of town, where town meeting voted to place it in the conservation, but it was never recorded in the registry of deeds. I remember I was at the town meeting for when the Webster Billings area, which was then called the Hodder property, was voted by town meeting to be taken by the town for conservation. But if that was never followed up with a deed or equivalent document that was suitable for recording and legal cementing of that action, shame on the town, and this is the time to correct it. One other thing is, I noticed just the other day, I was reading the actual product of the town meeting that voted to allow the water department to use 8.5 acres. The wording of the article that was passed by town meeting indicates that 8.5 acres will be shared by conservation and the water department. In other words, you're granting permission for the water department to utilize it for, developing a well site, et cetera. It doesn't say convey it to. That was not what the town meeting voted to do. It didn't convey it from one entity to another. It just said allow them to share it. And so we think we need to really carefully look at that language in our request.
And to add to that, the legislature voted on
Yes.
a bill to allow that transfer, and in the bill, it does say that it's being transferred to the water department. So it's not being shared according to the legislature.
We'll have to look carefully at all the verbs in all those documents.
Well, the legislation introduced by Josh Cutler was a home rule petition from the town, correct? So whatever phrasing he utilized would have been submitted by the town.
Or by people on behalf of the town. Might have been submitted by town council, which is the same thing as being submitted by the town. One would hope it would have been made consistent with the vote of town meeting language.
I don't think there's anything you can do about it at this point if it wasn't.
Well, we just need to examine to see whether you can see whether there is or is not any issue there. But the point is, we've got to finalize our registry of deeds, all of these changes.
Right, so I think, I would assume we're all in agreement that we would like to get a title for the Cleaver property transferred to us,
Well,
or deed
it's,
transferred to us.
yes.
Yes.
A deed for the 25-acre portion of the hospital
Well,
property.
that's the third request.
Transfer.
Yes.
The third request is prepare a deed for a 25.4 acre parcel, part of the Plymouth County Hospital property, to be conveyed by the select board to the Conservation Commission. I have a copy of the town meeting article.
That's,
What I haven't found is a copy of the plan. Somewhere there's a plan.
fortunately, there is one. It was prepared around 2006 on behalf of an earlier county hospital use committee. It divided it up into 3 parcels, 1, 2, and 3. It was approved and signed off on by the planning board. There's so many big, thick files relating to that property. I'm not sure where to say to look, but I know it does exist, and that's what we'll need to include with our.
So I'm offering
Package.
this paperwork pile to Ms. Woodward to copy, and then she can give it to you.
Well, I think while we're at this, we should in fact ask for a deed transferring or ensuring the conservation restriction on the rest of Western Village.
Right. Doesn't that make sense?
It does. When I was helping to talk about this a few days ago, I hadn't grasped that the whole Webster Billings area might not have already been covered. So that need is on the table.
What's even more interesting when you look at the documentation is that the town meeting article that said we're going to make this land swap offered the 25.4 acre Plymouth County Hospital property as compensation. It also offered a little lot on Brook Street, for which we've never gotten a deed. So maybe there's a 5th request.
I think there is. We hadn't been looking for that. It just arrived with all these other details.
I would suggest it behooves us to do as much of this in one bite at the apple as possible.
And so I really need to make out 2 more requests. One, to get the deed for the rest of Webster Billings, and also a deed for this little property on Brook Street.
Which takes us back to the original question. Are we paying for all this?
the point of making the request is that, if it's approved, it comes out of the legal assistance budget that's controlled by the select board. We don't have to pay. If they make us pay for it, they better give us some money, because we don't have any.
I would say,
Yeah,
I know the conservation fund is, pocket change at this point.
Yeah.
In terms of what we actually try to accomplish. I don't know offhand if any of the other accounts would apply.
Well,
What
the
I'm
selectmen's, if the
thinking.
legal budget's gonna pay for it, it won't matter.
There is money in the expense budget for professional services. I believe it's $5,000. We frankly rarely use it. There's also money in the expense budget for recordings when necessary. We have used it recently in the past for a couple of recordings, but in the further distant past, it was never used. It was always free cash. It was always turned back. So I believe at this point, if we had to pay for legal services, we probably could, or at least some of it. I don't know how much they're going to charge for these 5 deeds.
that $5,000 would probably cover about 20 hours at the most of their work, so who knows?
So I just thought I'd throw all that at you because I spent all day on this today.
Yeah.
I don't think the water department property has a name. It's a portion of Webster Billings.
Portion of West Orange.
Yeah, it may be that there is a very casually used name now, or 2 names, that they have to make a choice between, I'm thinking of which one they would choose. Just like the current well field is called the Crystal Springs well field. This one has been referred to as Area 5. It sounds like a UFO type thing. Area 54, no, Area 5, but that was when they were kind of looking over the whole town trying to find something. But that's just a name on old engineering drawing. But over and over again, understandably, they refer to it as the Old Pine Drive site or location. Whether that name sticks or a better name is found by the water department, who knows? People tend to want to name wells for the clean, pretty, beautiful, pine sounds nice, but I don't know about the old part. And when Silver Lake became a public water supply, it was changed from Jones River Pond to Silver Lake. So who knows? Good point though, TJ. I think it certainly, we still see it as part of the Western Billings Conservation Area, but there may be a, whatever the water department wants to call their well site. I guess they get to decide. I think good work so far, Frank. We find that, surprisingly to me, probably shouldn't be anymore, these simple requests never turn out to be simple, but we'll get it done. And at least we got feedback from the town administrator, and we'll put in a new request in response to that feedback, so thank you. And I'm sure we'll be talking in between meetings.
Need them to vote.
Okay.
Wait.
It would be good if you voted to submit these requests.
I would move that we vote to approve the UFO.
That would, well, it probably would be me, but the point is, the staff will prepare it, and, yeah, the entire committee with my name up at the top seems to be on this application. It's a request for legal services. So I think the motion would be to have the commission approve our application to the town of Hanson for legal services to accomplish these deeds.
Second.
We've had a lot of discussion. Any further? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We shall move forward. Thank you very much. Property management, I know things are going on, perhaps Mr. Mansfield has some feedback for us?
Yes, as I mentioned to you earlier, I cleared a walking path from the meadows at the end of the Bonnie Hill Trail, currently, up to Bonnie Hill Lane, so that if we can get a site visit with AMC, base of the trail, we can walk it.
I'm still trying to schedule that, but thank you, because we didn't want to have that done before the visit actually happened.
You can walk all the way through.
That's great. Did you see any neighbors or talk to anyone?
No,
No one came up to say what you're doing?
no,
Okay.
we're,
By the way, the nearest neighbor there, I think, is Nancy Tennessee Brown, and she's been aware for several years this was intended, and is highly in favor of it. Which makes sense, because near neighbors on Bonnie Hill Lane will now have almost their own personal access to all those great trails. So, thank you for doing
so
that.
that's all ready. And, for those who don't know, last week, down at Sweeney's Bog, I went to check through what the water flow was like on the stream, and found that someone had reinstalled boards in one of the water before the bogs. Not only that, it appears that they cut our lock off, took our the rod out, put the boards in, put the rod back, and then put their own lock on it.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, this wasn't kids, this was somebody with a plan. I went down there today, they didn't put boards back in.
By the way, I looked at with your work, which I appreciated, and I found a board.
There's one more, yeah.
I took that board home,
Which one?
the one that was laying on the ground next to the structure.
I might have missed it. Well, that might have been an old.
Because it was laying there, and I said, this does not need to be here, so I took it.
Well, I went today anyway, they did not, as I feared they might, go put them back in. There is one more I couldn't see before, and the water flowed over. It's not in the slot, it's.
Just lean like a mud board down the bottom?
Yeah, but it's covered with mud, I couldn't pull it off by hand, I'll get it out tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm gonna cut the lock off and put another lock on with our key. And so anyway, that's the status of that. The good news is, they're not playing games with it, they didn't go do it again.
I wonder if we should report it to the police as an act of vandalism.
Maybe.
I would.
We probably should.
If we just write a short description and invite their awareness of it, because if they're cutting off our locks and taking them, that's a crime. Not a big one, but it's a crime, and we don't like it.
Right.
We're not
And if
gonna.
it happens again, we need a record of it.
Yeah, if there's a pattern of repeat offenses, there's an offender in the picture that we just would like to find. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, the good news is maybe they learned a lesson on it. So
Who
anyway,
would file that? Is that a law?
It would be a new thing for us. We've called them any number of times to help patrol properties and this and that. I think, how do I put this? I myself, fortunately, am not accustomed to filing reports with the police for damage of stolen property. We'll have to just follow whatever their standard procedure is, I would think.
they don't have anyone on the desk down there anymore, do they?
I don't know.
Like, I'll stop down there tomorrow, if they do, I'll ask them.
So you can describe what happened, and say, we would like to get this on the record, how do we do it? And,
Right.
and then follow their guide.
If there's someone there, I'll ask, if not, I'll call.
Do we have locks? Way back when, we had ordered, or we're going to order locks that all match the key. Have we ordered those?
They're on.
Yeah, that was
The rest of them all have locks on, including that one, but now it's a different one.
So do we have more to
No.
replace that?
No, I just said we'll get it.
What we are doing is we're incurring expense that's really part of our restoration of the stream flow. And from agreement that goes back more than a decade, it certainly was refreshed a couple of years ago, we have expressed permission to spend up to $3,000 to get the stream flowing. And whatever our expenses are, we can bill the USDA where our expenses are growing. Maybe slowly, but they are growing.
Yeah, plus my return visits are expensive.
Yeah, well, that volunteer work is just so costly, we don't know how to put a tag on it.
That's the status with that.
Now that you're sharing the stormwater, I'm sure you're busy for this.
And I would say this too, the aluminum channel that was installed long ago by the Prairie people, with these plants slide down into, it looked to me, the top of the channel was deformed. like they had put some sort of heavy clamped-on leverage device to bend the aluminum to make the gap, the channel wider, so that it could get a plant in or out or whatever.
Well, that didn't work though, because I tried to pull one out that way, it wasn't big enough to do it.
So they worked on this for a while.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, I think they want to dam it up so that it will hold water, so the ducks will land in and they can shoot the ducks. I think that's.
well, that's what the duck hunter said to me, the guy that claimed he didn't know anything about it, said, they really didn't need to dam that up for the ducks, because we have another pond. So,
Because they dammed up the other one.
that was his first thought.
Well, people don't know that it's not okay to do this, or they act like they don't know. They just do it until they're forced to not do it. What we're trying to do is restore fish habitat, not enhance duck hunting habitat. One would think there isn't too much difference between the two, fish and ducks, they all like water. But we're just trying to restore a stream that's been, for 100 years, mangled. We're trying to restore that.
With that in mind, I noticed today up at the meadow, at the Bonnie Hill Trail, somebody drove a pickup truck through the meadow.
How recently do you think?
I'd say very recently, the past couple of years.
Speaking of property management, we meaning the town, should have, but don't have, 3 vehicle access points to the county hospital property blocked off. There has been no effective mechanism to do that. The road that goes down by the water tower, the road that goes in behind the food pantry towards where the hospital used to be, and the old main entrance with the stone walls off High Street, those all should be blocked. None of them are. The very least, something that is under our control, the Conservation Commission, is at the foot of the steep hill below the water tower. There is a narrow place where the road always went and still does go right along the fence into the newly designated 25-acre area for us. We can put something there if we so choose in the name of land management.
That's under our control?
Yes, now that it's under our control. The problem is, since 1999, when the town blocked this, it's been town land, which means it's under the selectmen, and the translation of that is nobody has done anything. Nobody manages it. Sometimes they let things happen. You know, we let the highway department pile sand there for a long time. Other things have been just allowed to happen, or blessed with a wave of the hand. But we need to block access to our property there. So the floor is open to ideas.
Are the other 2 select board properties that you mentioned, the other 2 mentioned, that I guess
The other access points?
Yeah.
Oh,
You mentioned the hospital.
Technically, all 3 access points are in the.
Can you send me an email on that?
sure, I can do that. Lon will remind us that we're going to do that.
Do any of the roads at street area, are any of the roads on our 25-acre parcel, or are they all under the select?
Everything's under the selectmen except this newly designated 25-acre parcel.
Which does not touch High Street, correct?
Correct. So there's no street access to ours.
So, in other words, in the long term, all 3 vehicle access points would fall under the select board.
What is happening is for about 5.5 years, maybe 6.5 years, there has been a final Plymouth County Hospital Use Committee.
Yes.
I have tried to get that committee, since I am on it, to request or do everything but actually do it, and then request money for gates of a type that would be substantial but movable for those 3 locations. I have gotten really no effective cooperation from the other members of the committee. I think they just don't understand what I'm saying, and they aren't making an effort to understand it.
I think one of those members is on the select board, so I will.
Yes. I'll just be very specific here. You know the big, I'll call it headache block that we put beside the Smitty's Bog gate? You can get those from the same source, from Landis, with a cylindrical vertical hole cast in it such that it can accept a 8-post. Just a little bit more. They'll make them, they'll deliver them, or we can have highway pick them up. And then you would need to have a gate fabricated to set in that if you had two of these set about 10 feet apart, with two 5-foot gates padlocked together, they swing open, or something like that.
You could just put a chain or cable.
But you need something for the chain cable to attach to, and there's nothing.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I am saying, what there's, and the good thing about them, you move them. It's not like you pour a concrete thing in the ground. You just put this, 800-pound block there, and then, but you can
Is it a
move it.
granite block type?
No, it's concrete.
No, concrete.
It's just like the, and with built-in lifting hooks, cast right into it.
Yep.
For placing or replacing or moving. It's sort of like a Jersey barrier on steroids.
So you could actually run a cable between those.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could, without doing the fancy gating of this engine.
Then would it make sense for us as a commission to report to the selectmen that we have in our newfound property management responsibilities on the hospital property, discovered issues with vehicle access, people driving where they don't belong, and call the attention of the select board to this issue?
I think, yes, and to enlarge upon it a little further, if we decide, maybe along the lines of what Mr. Mansfield was saying, a couple of these blocks with a cable in between, and I would say bright flagging of the cable such that you're not going to trip on it in the dark, you can see it. You could simply string a piece of PVC pipe on it with electric tape or something. Very
Something
inexpensive.
with all the teenagers would be used to playing around like that, they'll wreck their cars.
Well, or their necks and get sued. The idea is, we could say, and we highly recommend, or we urge, the selectmen to install at these other locations the same thing we just installed it, or that we're going to install in our location.
So you're thinking of doing this through Lon and not through me? I mean, I don't mind doing it either way. I
Well,
don't want to do double.
I think we'll do it through all of us, really, because
Okay.
if our commission does something, but then
So
shares our recommendations with the selectmen for
Yeah.
further benefit,
Yes.
it can go through any route you want.
So our concept was that at the point where conservation responsibility begins on the road, putting something to prevent access,
Yes.
but then also sending presumably a memo to the select board office to bring attention to the need for some sort of control
Right.
at a more effective and total location.
Because the
And I don't know
town,
if you wanted that request to come through me, just informally
I
through.
think it would be very,
formally.
very useful for you to, be the spokesperson
Yeah,
for something that comes from the whole commission, and you can speak for the commission,
right.
but to your colleagues on the select board, I think you can speak very effectively. The town, through a state grant, has just spent, and will continue to spend a little more, somewhat in excess of $100,000 to make a very nice trail through this. And except for the one gate down on Pierce Avenue, you could now drive the whole thing with a pickup truck. And you could ruin it overnight on a rainy night especially. This needs to not happen. So let's do these sorts of things.
So while we're on the subject of problems on the sites, I mentioned to you earlier, Phil, picked up two 42-gallon trash bags full of half-empty paint cans at 4 Brook.
On West Washington Street?
Yeah. Fill those giant-sized contractor paint. Fortunately, they were good heavy bags, because they were really heavy. And one of them had something really stinky in it, I don't know what it was. And they both had paint cans in it.
Weren't any bodies in it, were there?
One of them stunk pretty bad, so it's a possibility. I didn't want to go that far. There's also a car seat in there.
At Cormetto?
Yeah.
An old one or a new one?
Yeah, that's all.
There was this one very, very old one that was there when we
Yeah,
bought the land.
that's still there.
Okay.
And these two trash bags are dumped beside it.
And there's tires a little bit, older rubber tires that fall that along.
Well, they have trees growing through them.
There's a lot fewer than used to be. We, at no cost to the town, and partly through the auspices of this commission, we had over 200 tires removed from the woods there. Because a previous owner, not the one we bought it from, but one before him, there's a long story. There was a lot of tires dumped in the woods. It used to be, if you ran a farm, the way to get rid of things is throw in the woods beyond where the fields stop. this was that. And there's now probably half a dozen, if you look, and there's some of them have trees like this growing up in them. That's
In the
how
middle,
much
I've
is in
seen
it.
that, yeah.
It's almost kind of cute, but,
You gotta cut the tire off.
Well, anyway, just keeping up to date on that.
thank you.
There's also a door jam at Rockingham Run that I have to pull on.
A door jam,
Yeah.
like construction debris,
No, well, yeah, I guess.
demolition.
Ron pulled it out of the river, but he left it by the bank, so I need to pull it out. So, anyway, just an update for what's going on in these places.
Well, thank you.
The good news is not too much litter type trash.
Mhm. I don't suppose, because of the unattractiveness of it, there was any chance of finding incriminating names or addresses in the tank can trash bags?
No, I didn't.
You didn't dig into it?
It was a stinking mess.
Unhealthy.
So anyway, that's the
We
situation.
need to have a vote on sending a memo to the select board about the gates.
I think that we should, what needs to happen, and we can capture this in whatever the wording is right, we need to, on our own, initiate, identify and implement a barrier at the entrance to our property, and then reference that in, or reference our plan for that in a memo to the selectmen.
So do we want to figure out what we're doing to our property now? Is that what you're saying? Or are you gonna do it?
Here's a thought, and we know that we are at the bottom of the barrel of our conservation fund to do anything. But pretend for a minute that the barrel isn't quite empty. What would it cost to get two of those blocks from Landis and a cable and a padlock to connect the loops between those two blocks, and a piece of white PVC, like 1.25 PVC pipe, to string over the cable to keep it from becoming a white hazard? Or would that be like $1,000? I don't remember what it would have cost us at Over Smitty's to get those things installed.
That entire gate project was about $5,000.
I'm picturing the gate itself had been the lion's share, but
But the gate was already there.
We didn't buy it.
no, wait a minute, that's not the gate that was there.
Yes, it is.
It is.
And the post,
Yep,
same one?
yep.
Painted, but yeah, same ones.
So basically, what they did is they
Okay.
reset the posts and brought those concrete.
No, the posts I think were new.
Oh, that's right.
Posts were new.
Yeah,
The
the old posts were wood.
That's correct.
But it's the same gate.
Same gate.
So the leaf of the gate is the old one, just refurbished and painted.
Right, yeah.
Right, but we didn't pay, well, we paid for the paint, but we didn't pay for the labor on the gate, that was in-house.
Okay. Be that as it may, what it cost us over there for,
I think it
there's
was
about
10 of them,
a total of about 10 of these blocks, was about $5,000.
plus the gate work, so.
And that was him digging, pouring concrete.
Right.
Setting new galley posts.
Right.
So maybe the blocks were like 3,000?
Hard to say, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, if there was a breakdown of the bill that we paid,
No, I don't think there was.
there ought to have been. I hate bills without breakdowns, but.
We need them to place them.
Yes, there would need to be,
Well, yeah, that's right.
Dave, not to go off touch, isn't that every committee's invoice in the old?
Yeah, I guess, you're right.
The one said every,
But I don't think it was that.
somehow, there was a gate project in there somewhere, I don't know what it was called. I like what I'm seeing here, which is the commission saying, let's move from talking to actually doing something tonight, so that we can actually see something done ASAP and not still be talking about it a month, 2 months, 3 months later.
How wide is your opening at Bonnie Hill, Dave?
The one I just cleared? That's just a foot, like 3 feet, just for water.
Yeah, the easement, as we know, is 10 feet
So
wide.
motorcycles, but not pickup trucks.
Yeah, well, no, you'd have to be hard pressed to take a motorcycle through it right now. It's just a footpath.
Okay.
That,
How was the kid with the dirt bike, was gonna take well on that challenge.
That bill is not in there.
Okay.
By the
You know
way,
why that's not part of the USDA budget? Double check it.
Wasn't sure you.
folks, there's a useful thing here. On March 11th of this year, there is an invoice from Dandel Construction, and part of it says credit for 4 2x2 by 6 foot concrete blocks for burial that were not used, quoted in the proposal. So they took 4 blocks off the proposal.
Oh, good.
That credit was $360.
Okay, so
So the price might not be delivered or anything, but the price for a block would be 360 divided by 4. At least that last March it was.
$90.
Yeah, so
that sounds right. I think he told me they were about $100.
So
Probably in the neighborhood of like 100 to 120.
So if we spent a couple $100 for 2 blocks at the access point to our property, and, well, another 100 or 200 for cable and padlock and markings such as PVC pipe, if we could get, let's say, highway department to move the things for us, give us placement help, because they're always good with that. We could spend labor $500. We could get that.
We have to get them delivered.
So you're saying the highway department, right?
Well,
Right, highway placing them and highway picking them up from landers and getting them to the hospital site are 2 different things.
right. However, that math works out, and I just don't know the numbers. I think in terms of order of magnitude, we're probably talking about $500 worth of materials, plus whatever it takes to do the delivery and moving.
Is there any money left in the trail grant?
That's a good question. Yes, there is. We have about $25,000, $26,000 of CPC money, which is for the trail. This is on the main barrel of that trail, and the barrier would protect that trail.
Dandel's invoice was for only like 98,000, right?
Right, that was for the construction that they did. There are other elements to a whole trail project that are not part of the Dandel thing. This would be an example of that.
Well, what I was thinking,
I guess the argument is what,
you could maybe get Dandel to do the work, build the gate.
In other words, incur another cost, just like we incurred several thousand for the culverts,
Yeah.
and we paid that with the CPC part of the grant,
Yeah.
not the grant, CPC part of the project, but that still leaves like let's say $27,000 of CPC money we have not yet spent. We are going to spend money on the walkway materials for the area that Dave has cleared. So we are not done with the project, but there is still project money. Excellent point. I think that this is the way we ought to go, and the motion should be to spec out and order concrete blocks for a barrier at that location, and cable and padlock and other materials as necessary. And we will consider it part of the Bonnie Hill Trail project.
Where were you proposing to put it, at the bottom of the hill?
You know where we just put the new sign?
Yeah, right there.
A little past that where it's narrow enough that you can do it with 2 blocks and a cable, a few feet onto it.
We have to, you further uphill, you mean?
No, further downhill.
Well, it's clear, there's like a Y there.
The right-hand side of the Y has nothing to do with us. The left-hand side, where it narrows down to one thing that goes towards the piggery,
Well, I know, but somebody could just take a right at the Y and take another sharp left.
there's a 6-foot fence along each side of this. We start at that fence, and we string this across at a narrow
Oh,
place.
right on the trail.
Yeah, right
Oh,
on the trail
okay,
itself.
okay.
We don't want them on the trail. If they want to cut through the woods, good luck.
Well, they come down and take a right and go the other way.
Correct, but that's not our problem. That's not conservation land. That is what would be covered by this other recommendation that would flow through to the selectmen.
Except if we put a barrier a little further up the road, we can block them both off.
I don't think we should, I think we should stay in our lane on this.
that's right, I think the goal is to put it squarely on the conservation parcel.
We're setting an example for how other parties should manage their part of the public property. And so, of course, it's true, we could do that. If you put it at the foot of the hill, whoever's coming down the hill, in whatever, picture a kid on a bicycle. He hit, uh-oh, we don't want that. We want it off to the side. The barrier for the hill should be at the top of the hill.
Well, I'm all for that.
But that's what other people are gonna have to do. But good thinking, I mean, it's very efficient.
Yeah, once the town gets to a point of proper and permanent access control closer to High Street, the hill is going to be less relevant anyway.
Right, that hill is right now kind of an attractive nuisance. I mean, kids have been hurting themselves on that hill ever since it was built. I know because I'm one of them. But as the property gets fully and properly developed to the park, et cetera, the water department actually has an easement that covers the top of that hill. Their property, where the tower is and that sort of thing, it actually should be made a little bit bigger in case they need more space. They have an emergency drain under the ground right now that goes down beside that driveway and empties out. There is an outfall on the other side of that fence. The water department really is the key manager of some of that. But the point is, if we stay in our lane, do the right thing, set an example, and make a recommendation, others do the same, I don't know what else we can do.
So, of course, if we use those concrete barriers, they're gonna move.
By someone who's willing to move like an 800-pound block.
Well, no, but I mean, if we get,
Oh, yes.
so we can just move them. Yeah,
That's the beauty of the whole thing.
right.
This is a reusable you can repurpose those blocks over and over very inexpensively. So very few town dimes would need to be spent on more blocks if you get something to start with.
Right. Yeah, I would just take it back on.
Yeah.
So I would move that the commission authorize our capital project manager, whatever you did.
No, the Bonnie Hill, the Park Perimeter Trail project, no, I will not put words in your mouth. You will put the words in your mouth.
Yeah, so I would move that the commission approve spending, allocated but yet unexpended CPC money on, blocks and, blocks, cable, and, associated markings to prevent access to the trail,
Vehicular access.
Unwanted vehicular access to the trail.
She's writing that down. She's doing an excellent job. The meaning will be very clear. And the motion has been made. Do I hear a second? This is the fourth second. Further discussion? I think we've already had plenty. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? This is good. Very
And
useful.
I would also move that the commission approve staff sending a memo to the select board raising motor vehicle access concerns regarding the Plymouth Hospital property and the steps we are taking on our portion.
Sure. Propose temporary solutions to the access problem.
I know you guys have a lot of time. Sorry for the adventure.
Well, actually, compared to the headaches of dealing with these problems, a few memos could be a good use of time. Okay, I've heard the motion. Did I hear a second already? For that memo? I think we know what the content of it is and will be. Thank you. Let's move to the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion approved. Open space acquisition. I don't have anything new to report at this time. Does anyone else? No. We've got to make sure the things we bought stay bought. Mass DEP 22 Clean Watershed Needs Survey, due date is in a little over a week. What ought to be said about that? I saw something on, in my email, several weeks ago. I think it was in, maybe it was more than a month ago, it might have been early September. Was it in May?
May 25th.
Wow, several months? Okay. Everyone's on top of their packet except me.
I asked Tony, the town planner, whether he had received any feedback on this issue, that he has, put the word out on, and he said that, the only feedback he got was from us.
It seems that whenever water is discussed, people automatically think we'll do everything.
But what he did tell me was his view of what the state wants is, for whoever's asking, I believe it's the state, they want shovel-ready projects identified, and so just dreaming about what we might want isn't what they want. I got the impression, therefore, that it was going to die on the vine. We made some pretty good suggestions to him in a memo
This list.
quite a while ago, and nobody at the upper levels of town government has responded, so it doesn't look like we're going to get any state money for this.
So,
Well-
sorry, go ahead.
Not that it technically falls under us. No, we never even got anywhere with the fish ladder, that we should pull right now.
We had a promising start, and then the next month, Ryan was no longer even in town, so that did not get pursued.
Yeah, but I guess we can't put into the other departments.
No, we can't.
I mean, I guess we could just pick a number out of thin air and throw it on the dam removal, use it as a placeholder, but.
Speaking of the dam removal, and this actually comes under probably good discussion, the factory pond fireworks cleanup thing, associated with that, but a separate pot of money that cannot be used for anything else, is this $6+ million natural resource damages fund. A successful application went in for a little bit of that money to hire a person to be the point so that Hanson, Hanover, and Pembroke can look all around the watershed and see which natural resources need to have their damage repaired or need to have something done to enhance the watershed as opposed to harm the watershed. That hiring took place. A steering committee has been formed, and Hanson now has a representative to that committee. Matt Dyer, former selectman, is that representative. The key thing that committee is looking at is the dam removals. Not our Liberty Street one, but the ones on Indian Head River. The ones in the Curtis Crossing Dam in Hanover and Pembroke, the State Street Dam, which is entirely in Hanson, and the Factory Pond Dam, which is half in Hanson, half in Hanover. So dam removals are being looked at, however, it's going to be a long, tedious process.
So, Frank, have you by chance clicked this link for where they're soliciting feedback to see what exactly they're looking for?
Yeah,
Information portal?
I've read that, and I sympathize with Tony in his interpretation.
Mhm.
They wanted to gain knowledge about what people have engineered, estimated, think they're ready to do, and they're not interested in ideas about what you might want to do.
They can't handle vague ideas. They want
They want
specific engineering requests.
And
They want things we are prepared to do, not that we want to.
right.
The
And,
town's not very prepared.
and I mean,
So,
from my point of view, trying to deal with Hanson, I can't see where we would ever win that kind of a grant. Because we're not willing to put the money into the planning and engineering
The design.
upfront
Yeah.
to get to the point where we could ask for that kind of grant.
Yeah.
And it's been my experience that people who do that actually get the money back that they spent. They put that into the grant request as however they do it. I'm not a grant writer, but, you know, if your project is gonna cost $1 million and it's gonna cost you $100,000 to get it to the point where you're ready to go with it, they'll put that $100,000 into
right, the grant is for 1.1 million.
Yeah, 1.1 million.
It would probably be something like to replenish the account line from which expenditures have already been made for this project.
I don't think they'd even go that far to be explicit about it. They'd just say that the cost estimate is $100,000 more than it's actually estimated to be.
To this point, and to the general point of town's never ready, but to a possible opportunity, one of the things on here is, number 5 on your proposed list, Frank, is stormwater treatment at many sites. That could be small, medium, or even pretty good sized stormwater best management practice installations to take water off town parking lots or sidewalks or streets or anything that go directly right now into a river or a pond or something like that. It's too late to meet the deadline of October 30th, 2022, but I think there ought to be right now, on a priority basis, serious thought given to designing and taking a dream and turning it into an engineered wish list item that we want to do this and have on paper some designs for things. For example, like the stormwater dumps in the right out here. There's a big concrete pipe that goes right in the brook, the stormwater from the street, from this parking lot. We have other things in other places. Stormwater treatment at the end of Arlene Street, there's a 12-inch diameter pipe that goes right into the Oldham Pond. That's in reports as being a problem because Oldham Pond is diverted for water supply.
Is this is this stuff that we're supposed to be working on, Dave, with the drainage?
I still don't have any idea.
Yeah.
I will humbly suggest that the former Drainage Committee, now the Stormwater Management and Drainage Committee, ought to start shining a light on things that could be done and not ignoring things that have been ignored a lot. Starting with simple stormwater management fixes, because technology is out there. You can look it up. You can say, I want one of those right here. And however you do it, start putting together some plans, even if you have no money.
So who owns MS4 compliance in town?
Sorry.
Who owns MS4 compliance in town?
Now there's a good question for you.
The highway department thinks that they own it, because they were the ones that got the 3-inch thick booklet and the permit from the EPA and DEP. At least some members of the planning board think the planning board owns it. However, I read the thing, and I put together a 1-page summary that says I think there are about 6 parts of town government that co-own it. I think the lead part probably should be highway, because most of the stormwater runs off highways or paved things that look like highways. And whatever that memo is, I would love to keep it because all of us glaze over when we see a permit that's this thick. But you have a 1-page thing that kind of is easier to figure out. And I think not rocket science, but some action should be taken by that committee to start doing these kinds of things. I can give you more examples than I just did. But stormwater management and treatment is never going to happen unless you make it happen.
So, which brings me back to the next point. Most, if not all parts of town government seem to be at their bandwidth limit. Regardless of the head count they have, full-time, part-time. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people sitting around with the ability to dig more things on here. If the Stormwater Management Committee is going to start digging into these sort of things, They don't have any money for engineering. They don't have any staff support. They're not in a position to make these moves that are gonna get us to
Well,
a position.
not only that, there's only 3 people on the damn committee.
Current.
And one of them's in a,
And one of them's in, well, there's 4, right? And
Yeah,
one's
one.
basically disabled, well, 2 of them are basically disabled.
Who are they,
David.
Dave?
It's me, Ed, Don, Howard, and, Gil,
His brother.
Amato's brother.
Oh, Betty?
He just had open heart.
Ernie.
Right,
Ernie Brown.
open heart surgery.
Well-
That's who's on the committee, and,
So you're gonna get a lot of talk about underground.
yes, that is all there is to talk about right now.
Yes.
And that is,
Come and see me.
yeah, I will.
I
because-
have a lot of information
What?
about drainage.
I mean, I guess maybe I'm making the argument to the wrong people. Maybe I should be turning to
Yeah.
this end of the table, but it's, as Frank's saying, if you want to be competitive for grant money to make these improvements, which I'm sure Hanson does, because
Because who doesn't?
we don't want to.
We don't want to tax for them, we want the state to pay for them.
Right.
So who did this go to? Did this go to you, or did this go to, Disagree? Like, who fills this out? This isn't just conservation.
What are you
He's
waiting?
looking at the.
The original email from Matt.
Yeah, it doesn't say who it's
From
from.
DEP to whoever Maria Pinard is, and copied to whoever.
It actually came into Beth at the town clerk's office,
Okay.
and she blasted it out
Yeah,
because she said, I don't know who belongs to this, but somebody must.
It was BCC, probably 400
So-
officials across the Commonwealth.
I remember seeing that blast, and you saw it, Frank.
And I
But-
passed it on to Tony.
They're gonna
I
have
dumped
to-
it on Tony.
To get anywhere with this, there's gonna have to be engineering work done ahead of time. You're gonna have to have plans, you're gonna have to have estimates. If there's stormwater structures that are pouring into ponds and brooks, they're gonna have to come before us
And
for an RDA or an NOI or whatever the
Yeah.
applicable thing is.
absolutely.
And nobody has staff availability and bandwidth or financial availability and bandwidth to address this problem. So, I mean, like I said, I'm probably arguing with the wrong people here, but we're not going to be able to get anywhere if we just tell Dave, as chair of the stormwater committee, here's 40 things in town that need to get fixed.
Well, one other thing just said that I think everyone here should hear. Frank, you said that you have a lot of information about stormwater. You have not been idle in your, both your spare time and your professional time for many years in tracking this topic. You have information that the average person on the street doesn't have. And we need to be aware of that as you're going forward.
Well, the stormwater management, whatever the name of this committee is, it was just reorganized.
Yep.
Nobody knows who organized the committee, there's no records, there's no charge for the committee, there's no information at all about this committee.
There was a drainage committee
Right.
in the past.
And
Yes. Do you have
And
any information on it?
it was the highway surveyor and a couple of other people. And the objective was, if you have a problem somewhere in town with storm drainage, that this committee would address it, okay? And basically, it was, my road is flooded, what do I do? And so the highway guy would go down and he'd look at it and he'd say, oh yeah, we gotta do da, 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 da,
Dig
da.
a trench.
And the drainage committee would say, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do that, and they would do it. That was the sum total of the drainage committee. Basically, it was the highway department responding to complaints.
So they just added stormwater management to the committee name.
Yes, because frankly, that's what drainage is.
Yes.
The drainage doesn't come from almost anywhere except for storms.
Right.
What has been recognized, the culture and the government have recognized since the early days when that drainage committee was formed, that there's bigger issues than just someone complaining they got a puddle in their road. There's a lot of pollution going on that is harming the public interest in many, many ways. The whole stormwater concept was derived and named and started to be mandated because of that. I think it's extremely logical to have renamed the committee like it was just done. But that committee should start, I think, should become familiar with our MS4 permit. Because that's what the stormwater is governed by. And, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't even know, like Dave was saying, we don't even know, we're assuming we're MS4, and that's what we're based on.
Well,
the town is.
but that's not what Don Howard thinks.
Well, let me
Well, you're the chair of the committee.
Let me say something to the chair of the committee. This permit was issued, I think, in September of 2018 by EPA to the town of Hanson. We have a stormwater permit with which we are expected to be in compliance. And we either do it or we don't. It may be a long time before the feds come after us and penalize us for not doing it. But if we think that there's any value in polluting our waterways less, we would want to do these things. And what a lot of communities have done all across the country is they have come up with what they call a stormwater utility.
Stormwater what?
Utility. Gas is utility, electricity is utility, water is utility, so is stormwater structures. And it sounds like you would need to fund it, and you're correct, because you would need to fund it. And I don't know what the different ways are of funding other than to raise and appropriate money, but it seems to me that there ought to be a stormwater utility expense line in the highway department budget, which there isn't yet. And even if you fund it at zero.
They do have articles, in the upcoming town meeting.
About this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're beginning to face it.
Is anybody from Highway on your committee?
No. Right now, this committee is Don Howard's personal vendetta about detention bonds.
Yeah.
That's all that's going on with this right now. We can't talk about anything else right now. So Ed and I are trying to somehow get this thing off the ground, because right now it's going nowhere, first of all.
I mean, we keep saying, talking the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's completely bogged down
He's
with.
got one PowerPoint slide that is in his mind that he wants to.
It may be that the chair of the committee, difficult as it is, would need to halt some areas of discussion and start one or two new ones, including some constructive thoughts.
I'll give you a possible out. Don?
Where's your information? Is it up here? Is it in writing, or?
I have a lot of stuff in the office.
So one of the problems is,
Well, Ed, I'll let, as chair of the committee, I'll say, Frank has to finish a thought, and then please go ahead.
Don Howard wants to mandate underground retention ponds for new subdivisions. Give them that.
oh yeah, we're not arguing with them.
Well, then, give it to him. Take
Give it
action.
to them. Say, we're going to recommend to the planning department that they put this into their regulation.
We already said that.
Do that.
We already done that.
And then that's done.
Right,
If you've done it,
but,
then why do what we're talking about?
but the problem is, we've already agreed with them on that. Yes, fine, good. But the problem is, Ed and I have no idea what the charge for this committee is. We have no idea whatsoever what we're supposed to do.
Like, if we're doing like you're saying, where we're picking up the phone and saying, hey, somebody wants to, hey, highway, get over there and clean their drain. I mean,
So that's, right now, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So the mission that Ed and I are on right now is to find somebody in this town government that had some idea of when this committee was established and why. And once we know that, maybe we can start to make a plan to address it. But as it stands right now, the only agenda we have is that.
Who set it up? Ask them.
I don't know.
You were appointed by the
Is this
selectmen.
Laura?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Is one of Laura's ideas?
I have no idea.
I don't think, I don't know if it's like that.
I mean, there must be a selectman's minute somewhere that said, we're gonna set.
There are some minutes that don't have it, and then all of a sudden they started having it. Read those minutes from there on, and that will be the answer to your question.
Well, you gotta remember how I got involved. There was a stormwater management committee, and they wanted a liaison between the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission and that committee, so I said, I would be the liaison.
Yeah.
The next thing I know, I got appointed to be on the committee, and then at the first meeting, I got elected chairman because there was nobody else there. So that's how this happened.
I was,
Yeah, that wasn't even it.
I did that.
That's how all this happened.
Who elected you?
It was Don and Ernie,
You and Don and Ernie?
yeah.
That was it.
The vote was 2-1, they voted against it.
Exactly, that's precisely it. And so, and you can understand my consternation about what's supposed to happen.
This Conservation Commission greatly sympathizes with all of the above and with all that's going to happen, whatever it is. But we need to come back to our agenda for tonight.
Yeah.
I think some useful information is available from our agent, but that's not our subject right now. And,
Right,
so I know I have thought that there's not enough time for it right now.
the conclusion that we came to is that as a commission, we're gonna punt on the clean water and shed needs survey because we don't have anything ready to go.
Well,
We
meaning the town.
don't have anything to do.
The town as a whole doesn't, but we specifically as a commission
What
don't have
happened,
anything that we could.
yeah, Frank is this part of an email you sent?
Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest that the commission.
And Tony copied it and sent it out to the world. These are the suggestions I've gotten, do you have any feedback? And he had nothing come back.
I would submit that this commission and its staff has done all it can on that, and we need to move on, but we may be a little bit wiser, but we'll just see what happens in the future. Old business, new business, we have invoices to sign. We should commence those at this point in time with the help of our capable staff.
So, what is that?
You got an extra one.
Stormwater committee.
Right, tell him he's got an extra one.
Yeah, so these, there's a couple of handouts in here. This is an extra one that's not on the agenda. It's the recording fee,
Well,
Okay. Which
for,
recording fee?
I don't know, for,
We need a check from Todd.
oh, for the land report, the base,
We missing.
no, it's the
Oh,
report, final draft.
the
Okay, I'll come get it.
land management plan
Yeah.
for the sleeper property.
Yeah, so I'll put it on the next agenda, and then when I post it, do the minutes, I'll say we signed it at this meeting,
Okay.
all right?
Two sections.
That's just a note for Gina to give me the check so Frank can go.
And again, sign every single thing.
Yep.
What's up with the new trees? The 100 trees?
Oh, yeah.
What new trees? I don't know what we're being asked
The ones we voted to buy last, 2 weeks ago.
Secrets.
Has anybody contacted the trees?
Yes, we know exactly what we need to do, we just need to know how many we're going to get. That's a math problem. We're looking at the invoices to see what we've already spent of the $3,000 for the stream restoration work, whether it's wetland restoration work, Smitty's Bog. That process is ongoing now because Lon has put into Dave's hands the invoices that we spent at Smitty's Bog, and Dave will tease out of that which invoices apply to the restoration work that was approved, which applies to $3,000 worth of restoration work. The minute we know how many dollars are left out of that $3,000 from the relative few that we've spent, we will put together the purchase order for the Atlantic White Cedar, and a smaller portion of that will be spent on some shrubs to go along with the white cedar. So until we do the math with those invoices, that historical research, we can't place the order, but the minute the math is done, we will. And that's where we stand on the trees.
So, we have 321 in the bylaws, stormwater management.
Well, actually, I can tell you the answer to that right now.
We need to put it in writing. We can't do it verbally, I don't think. We need to be we need to know which invoices we're looking at, so we can put copies in our invoice to the USDA.
Well, we have the invoices. They're right here, they're listed here.
I'm designing stuff right now, I can't look at them, but I'm glad to hear that, but it's accurate.
So,
I don't know what you guys want me to do. I submitted the invoices, there's 3 of them, it's $400. It hasn't changed, it's been the same since August.
Just, if you wanna put the stickies next to the invoices, I'll be able to copy them to give them to Helen.
That will do it, that will do it.
Yeah,
It's all different.
but we need the actual, like, the ones that are So if you go through those reports, Dave, like, I have to give you the actual copies on the expenditure reports. They'll show the actual invoices that we paid. So, yeah, after that, see those right there? Those have everything listed for like a certain period, but it'll show the actual Dandel invoice or the reimbursement invoice.
There is no Dandel.
Right, but it's just, that's just a sample. If you go to the pages, it'll show the invoices for the specific period. So if there's anything that you notice that we use, we can take that actual invoice and add it to that correspondence for the reimbursement.
I don't think I've ever sat down and read I've read a lot of the town bylaws, I don't think I've read it. To the best of my knowledge, the committee hasn't meeting, but that's one of the things we're about.
So what's interesting is, you know, we're voting on bylaw changes.
There was a consultant hired to go through this and update all the obsolete references, and make sure that we have references to other things correct.
That's what we were thinking about. This is from that consultant, right?
No, this is from the town clerk. And it's just the changes from the May 2023 town meeting.
Right.
Yes. Which I don't think changes from board of selectmen to select board to require going to the bylaw review committee. So like we voted in May to add a requirement that you live in town to serve on the committee.
I got 1 hour left for tomorrow. One. I love it.
Sounds like you really need to decide what needs to live in our town. Well, that'll come up. Probably gonna need to review that. I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's principle to make raspberry.
I'm being forced to
You're
consume
being
this.
forced, yeah. There's only 2 left,
You're not
so.
gonna take it back?
No.
You're gonna have to officially change your address in order to change. Because it sounds like you're living up to this. You're officially telling me that that's not inside.
Officially speaking, if your legal address is somewhere, that's where you reside.
Where's your legal, yeah. But your legal address is not to do, just a place you, not to be supposed to. See, one would assume.
No, and legally speaking, your legal address is what you need to
That's before we know she did it.
You got a mailing out there, it's blood.
Right. Well, I just go based on what the investigation came back.
Sugars in your mouth, so you put on 2 medications. I don't think so.
I will say as we engage in the time here, I appreciate the energy and the commitment and the serious thought that we all give into all these things, even though it made our evening longer, but, that's what we need to do to get some things done. And I look forward to some real accomplishments, such as blocking vehicles to our 25 acres of land.
For what it's worth, Frank, stormwater's under the planning board in the bylaws.
I don't know how...
I invite you to look at the wetlands protection regulations
Well, the next section of the bylaws is discharge to town municipal storm drain, and that's under the Board of Health. So, I think there's a lot of things we could probably get straightened out in this, if my review committee ever starts meeting.
As Frank says, though, there is governing state law in existence right now that has a little bit to say about that.
We have statutory responsibility for stormwater management.
I didn't say I think it's right, I just said,
Do we have a copy of that in the office? 'Cause I don't know.
Yeah, put it in the binder on the side.
The bylaw thing?
Yeah. Ours is pink.
Yeah, well, I can write my own.
I know you're busy today, I didn't want to.
I just
In the file.
want you to buy some blocks and roll, because at least I could just sketch off the other thing. That's it.
With the invoices having been signed, that completes our agenda. The chair invites a motion to adjourn.
So,
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we stand adjourned. Thank you all, staff and commissioners.
Under the rules of order,